I feel you.
Who that?
Whoever that is want to call in, man, and be taking all. Look, we ain't doing that no more, man. We gonna cut them jokers off.
Hey, look at him.
We gonna cut them straight off like, hey, bro, go on with that, man.
Here you go. Here you go.
Go ahead, man, turn it on. I'm ready, man. We gotta get the goddamn lawn cord down. we got there.
Man, go ahead.
Man, I want my goddamn microphone, man. Man, y'all, man. Start docking goddamn right here, too. Eric goddamn, what time it is? 8:10, bro. It's just like, man, being in a radio station. Same thing. It's gonna be the same thing.
I'm gonna tell you like that.
Huh?
I'm gonna tell you like that.
Yeah, same thing, man. Same thing.
Put it like that. Put it like that.
That's it, like that. Got all my little stuff. Come on, bro. That's your duty. 8:10, Raheem.
I told you.
8:10, bro.
Look at him. Look at him.
Look
Look at him.
We gonna cut them.
Look at him. No. Look at him. Look at him. You ain't listening to him. You ain't listening to him.
I am listening to you. What you mean?
Look at him.
Bro, we gonna cut them off, man. Hey,
Look
bro.
at, I kept saying,
This is a business, man. This
I kept saying, hold on, you ain't listening to
They
me.
tell me.
I kept saying, look at what I kept telling you.
bro. Like,
Look, somebody kept saying, I can't cut it off. I can't.
man, we cutting it off. Next week, we gonna pull the plug. We gonna do like they do in Harlem. Like, move. Go on with that,
Sam
man.
Abbott Brothers.
Huh?
You know Sam Abbott Brothers?
No, bro. I'm coming in.
Look at him.
It's like, hey, man, it's time to go, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when we get ready to go, it's like, hey, bro, when I say it's time to go, right?
That's right.
Come on, man.
I try. Hey,
We trying to generate revenue, man. We trying to go to another level. I mean, man, man. Hey, let me pray, man. Let me pray. Y'all got me. Throw me off, man. I'm ready, man.
You cut it
I'm
off?
ready. You don't have to, man.
Let's go. Let's go.
I keep messing with y'all. I'm gonna have a 30-minute show. It ain't even gonna be an hour. It's gonna be 30 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Bye-bye, man.
But we'll work it out because ain't nothing but love. Cause I love you, so all right, you ain't gotta worry about that.
That joke was going in, though.
Hey.
Man, that joker was.
You know, like a rocket.
I hope he's still listening. I would tell him, like, man, you better. What's the point for?
Oh, man.
Oh. Shoot, man. Oh, man, let's have a moment of prayer first. Oh, man, let me gather my thoughts. Whew. Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is Joaquin Thompson with the Daily Bread Radio Show. Had a couple of technical difficulties, but we're gonna work that out. We're gonna work it out, and it's a pleasure to be on the air again. It's a pleasure to be live again, and got a lot of information I want to share with you all this evening. First thing is the number to the radio station if you want to call in with a comment, or if you have a question about anything that we're going to talk about tonight, or anything that we've talked about in previous shows. The call-in number is 678-381-1973. 678-381-1973. So you want to make sure that you write that down. We'll put it in the chat. We see everybody starting to jump into Facebook Live, some of the other things. So we got a couple of different things we're going to talk about this evening. The first thing that I want to do is thank you all, because everything's been going very well, and the show is growing. So one of the things that I want you to keep in mind is, and that's part of my message today, is as you make the decision to start working on something, it's going to take longer than you expected. It's three things. It's going to take longer than you expected. It's going to cost more than you expected. And it's going to be harder than you expected. So as long as you keep those three things in mind, then you know that as you're growing in your business, or you're growing in your workout, or you're growing into your dream, whatever it is, just keep those three things in mind. No matter how you plan it out, it's going to be harder, it's going to cost more, and it's going to take longer. So as long as you know that, then you're fine. So with me, I'm great. I'm just warming up. So really excited to be here this evening. And this evening, I wanted to start off with a couple of different scriptures that I want everybody to be in tune with. Because as you read through the Bible, mean, sometimes when we read in different scriptures, people interpret the scriptures for us. So I'm thinking that, I mean, for me, because I'm an avid reader, I like to read things and interpret them for myself. So a couple of different scriptures that I want to go through before we get started this evening, just so that way it'll be in your spirit. You can marinate on it a little bit and see if it makes sense to you. I want to definitely say thank you to one of my good friends, Minister Anthony Jackson. He poured something into my spirit last night that really blessed me. And I'm going to share that same scripture with you all as well. Brian Armstrong, I see you. He's senior now, but I see you. And some of the feedback people told me, say, hey, man, stop shouting out at everybody. But I'm going to shout out people because people support me. So sometimes they say people logging into the show and they don't know what the show is about. So they log in and log out. I get it. But what you always got to do is make sure you have a gratitude of thanks. So I appreciate Brian being on. Brian, a good friend of mine. We grew up together and he's senior now, but he's still my little brother. Loretha, I see you. I see Ashley is on. And we're going to jump right in. So if you have your Bibles, you can follow along at home. But if not, you can just, sit back and relax and listen to some of these words. So the first one I'm going to go to is going to be in Proverbs 20:4. And listen to this. And all of this pertains to personal finance. So that's one thing that I want to get out to you, like right off the bat. So if God is talking about it, or if it's in the book, I didn't make it up. I didn't come up with this. This is in the book. So if it's in the book, then it's good. Just know that it's good if it's in the book. So the first one is going to be Proverbs 20:4. And it reads, it says, the lazy man would not plow because of winter. He will beg during harvest and have nothing. Now that's deep. That's really deep. Now you can interpret that, but when I read that, it says the lazy man will not plow because of winter. He will beg during harvest and have nothing. So the short version of that is, if you are not about your business and if you're not about the Father's business, then you're not going to reap all of the things that you think you're going to reap because you haven't plowed and planted a seed. And we talked about seed the last time that I was on live with Minister Antonio Eubanks. We talked about seed because God is not going to give you a finished product. God is not going to give you fruit. God is going to give you seed. So when God gives you seed, you have to take that seed, plant it, plow. Plow means to work. So I'm going to interpret for some people, because some people, they read things and they say, oh, that ain't what that means. Every time that I seen a plow, it was an ox and a guy or a young lady behind the ox or the mule or what have you. And in order to plow, that means you have to apply effort. And in order to apply effort, you got to sow a seed and plant that seed and wait for the harvest. So if you're not willing to, plow, because it says the lazy man will not plow because of winter, that's an excuse. So even when it's cold out, even when things not going your way, you still need to be planting the seed. So that's Proverbs 20:4. So let's drop down to Proverbs 20:7. So this one reads, the righteous man walks in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. Now this one really touched me because, as you all know, I have 3 children and I have 2 grandchildren. And for all of the parents that I see out there, Skilly, I see you out there. I know you got 2 sons. Brian, I know you got your kids. My daughter's on, Ashley, she has 2 kids. So just let this resonate in your spirit. The righteous man, and when it says man, it's talking about man and woman. The righteous man walks his integrity. His children, and then it has it italicized, his children are blessed after him. So that means based on the things that are happening from a generational standpoint. And when you start thinking about personal finance, the things that you're going to do in your generation has the ability to bless your children and your children's children. That's also in the Bible. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. That's your grandchildren. So just let that resonate in your spirit. And that's Proverbs 20:7. The next one is going to be Proverbs 20:11. Even a child is known by his deeds. Whether he does, what he does is pure, whether let me redo that because I'm getting tongue-tied here, going too fast. Even a child is known by his deeds, whether what he does is pure and right. So that was pretty deep as well, because that means that all of us are known by the deeds that we take part in, the things that we do. People know us by who we are. So even a child is known by his deeds, whether what he does is pure and right. And that's Proverbs 20 and 11. Proverbs 20 and 13 says, do not love sleep, but poverty. Open your eyes and you will be satisfied with bread. Let's read that again. Do not love sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes and you will be satisfied with bread. Hold on one second now. We was getting some feedback from the studio. So that one for me as well was a pretty deep scripture, because love and sleep means that, again, you're not working towards something. And it says if you love sleep, because it says do not love sleep lest you come to poverty. So that means a lot of what we're talking about with personal finance is that if you're sleeping, if you're not working on something, if you not really what I call grinding, then poverty will come to you. It's in the book. So don't believe me, just go to the book. The next scripture is in Proverbs 20 and 18. And I love this one. It says, plans are established by counsel. By wise counsel, wage war. And what that means is, don't try to go at it alone. Don't try to be the Lone Ranger. Don't try to be, the MVP by yourself. Kobe needed a team. Kobe was great in his own right. LeBron is great in his own right. Muhammad Ali was great in his own right. But it's not until you get a team of people, that can share counsel with you about what you should and shouldn't do. That's when you go out and when you wage war. But you're not going to go out and wage war against somebody by yourself. So make sure that you're receiving wise counsel and that you open yourself up in your spirit, so that way you'll know that what you're doing, you're on purpose. You're working within your purpose. So that's chapter 20 in Proverbs. And now I'm going to go to the last one. And this one was very deep. And like I said, Minister Jackson, he shared this one with me yesterday. And this is going to take us into today's broadcast. And this one is for 8. Proverbs 8, y'all gonna have to bear with me. Proverbs 8 and 12, and it reads, I, wisdom, dwell with prudence and find out knowledge and discretion. That one is deep, and it reads a little different in different Bibles, but what we were sharing in the new translation was, it talks about, it points out witty inventions. So with that being said, what happens is, as we're working on things, as we're coming with different ideas, as we're thinking through different things that we want to work on or have to come to pass, God is also working with us in that same space. He's also working with us in that same space. So the thing that I would encourage you all to do is to make sure that you keep God on board as you're making these different plans and as you're going through different things. But I wanted to bring that word to you today. So again, you could think about that as we move forward. Think about the things that we're going to do as we continue to grow in our personal finance. So the other thing that I want to bring to you all today is, I'm going to bring this because I'm still working on my social media. And the funny thing is, people have been reaching out to me saying, hey, I'm on Twitter now too, and I got a Twitter, handle and things of that nature. So if you want to reach me on Twitter, I'm Joaquin Thompson, Joaquin Thompson Senior at Daily Bread Radio. That's my Twitter. That's where you can reach me on Twitter, and on email, I'm at dailybreadradioshow@yahoo. Daily Bread Radio Show at Yahoo. So those are some things or ways that you can get in contact with me. If you want to call into the station, definitely, if you have a question or if you have a concern about something, the number to the station again is 678-381-1973. 678-381-1973. Something else that I always share with you all each week, I always bring you a different book because, like I said, we should all continue to be lifelong learners because as you read, you start to learn more things, and as you learn, you can grow because if you're not reading, you're not growing. I mean, that's the bottom line. And we hear all these different things about if you want to keep something from a person or keep something from a people, put it in a book. I don't really take that lightly. I take it very seriously. So I'm constantly reading different things. So the book that I'm going to recommend to you all this week is called The 10X Rule. The 10X Rule. And this book is written by a gentleman by the name of Grant Cardone. And he's all over the internet. He's all over social media. Grant Cardone, if you just Google Grant Cardone, this is a multi-millionaire. This man his net worth is right at about $500 million. And what he talks about is really just being about your business and how your success is your duty. Like you shouldn't take it lightly. You should try to be average. You should really be working towards being a good steward, not only a good steward of your business and a good steward of the plans that you make, but you also want to make sure that you're working on it with everything that you got. And he has what he calls the 10X rule. So whatever you're planning to do, he's saying you should be doing it 10 times harder than you plan to do it. You should be reading 10 times more. You should be, investing 10 times more. You should be 10 times hungrier. You should be making 10 times as many phone calls. His whole philosophy is you should be doing everything 10 times more and not bring your goals down so that way that you can reach them, but bring your goals 10 times higher. So as you're reaching towards those goals, you're going to reach a place. So even before you reach the goal, you're going to get to a place that you've never been to because you're just striving and working harder to get into that place. So it doesn't matter if you work in what I call a 9 to 5, if you got your own business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a teacher, preacher, musician. The people that get to excellence, they do it 10 times harder. So I would definitely encourage you, make sure you pick up this book. It's called The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, Cardone. If you Google him, you can't miss him because every day he's posting things on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. He's on everything. So definitely take the time to read that book and it would definitely bless you. So today's topic, we're gonna start to get into that space that everybody has been really waiting to go into, and that is we're going to start to talk about credit today. And credit is one of those things where if you don't know, what I'm going to share with you tonight is really going to be life-changing. And if someone's not on the line with us tonight, I would strongly encourage them, if they mean a lot to you, I would strongly encourage you to tell them to come back to the Daily Bread Radio show on Facebook and have them review the information that we're going to talk about tonight because it is truly, truly life-changing. So what I'll do for the remaining time that we have is I'm going to set up the different components of credit. And we're going to talk about credit, but credit is going to be a multi-show topic because credit is so vast, it's so deep, there's so many components of credit. There's so many things that we need to deal with because credit is the cornerstone for personal finance. Let's just get it out there. Because one of the things that is also a cornerstone is savings. Another thing, in my opinion, which is a cornerstone is giving. But before, like we talked on previous shows, before you can get to giving, you really have to get to the point where you can get your credit in order. So that way you can become a blessing and be a blessing to others because it's kind of hard to be a blessing to other people when your credit is shot. It's kind of hard to be a blessing and get into a position where you can multiply yourself when your credit is really not where it needs to be. So, but one of the things that I found, I wrote a book back in 2007. It's called My College Finance, a guide to understanding personal finance for students and parents. The reason that I wrote the book was it was only one primary reason why I wrote the book. And the reason I wrote the book was this. At the time that I wrote the book, I thought about my life and all of the things that I did and how I had listened to my parents and listened to my mentors that say, you need to go to school, get an education, get a good job, and everything will be great. Everything will turn out well. So what I do, I followed their advice. I went to one of the best institutions in the universe, Howard University. I know people went to FAM, they think it's FAM, but that's another time, that's another show. We're not going to get into that. It's a reason that they call it the capstone. It's a reason they call it the hilltop. So I only got a limited amount of time left today, so we can have that conversation another time. But got my education, graduated, went back, got another degree. And what I found out was nobody taught me anything about personal finance. Nobody told me about a budget. Nobody told me about credit. Definitely didn't tell me about bad credit. So when I started to learn about credit and got to a point where I could write a book and become a subject matter expert, but I came a subject matter expert by doing all the wrong things. So when you start talking about credit can really be either a curse or a blessing to you. And if you have bad credit or if you have no credit, there's certain systems that you need to be aware of. There's certain things that you're going to have to educate yourself on, because credit is not about what you have right now. Credit is something that's going to be with you from now until you pass away. No matter what age you are, it starts right around about 18 years old. Anything after 18 to 80, anywhere in between, credit is going to have an influence in your life, whether it be the job that you get. A lot of students are graduating from college now, and they don't realize that their potential employers are pulling their credit when they do their interviews. So why is that important? That's very important, because one of the things that I feel that companies are doing is they use credit now. To me, that's the new discriminator. So they can't do racial discrimination as blatantly as they did it before. They still do it, but they can't do it so blatantly as they did it before. But what they can do is they can pull your credit. And if your credit is not where it's supposed to be, they can use your credit as a disqualifier for the position. So now that we're getting more and more students, especially African-American students and Latino students, graduating from higher learning institutions with their college degrees and various subject matter experts areas, it's also coming back to credit. So they could have had that phone bill, that pizza bill, things of that nature, ran it up, didn't realize, that $500 bill was going to follow them. It turned into a collection. Now they're interviewing for a job and they don't get the job because of a $500 bill. So it's really impacted millions of students, and a lot of students don't even realize that it is happening, because it's happening so perversely. And the thing about any system, and we may not have talked about this, so I'm going to insert it right here. The thing about any system is you need to learn the vocabulary of the system. You need to learn the words that go with that system and understand the meaning. So with credit, because credit is so vast, you have to start learning about not only the credit, but the credit laws that govern how you determine a credit score, how you go about removing derogatory things from your credit, how you go about, challenging things that are in error on your credit. So credit is something that you really have to take on a personal, almost like a personal vigil, or just be so into I got to get this right. And that goes to what we've been talking about from day one on this show, is you have to make a decision that you want to improve where you are from a credit standpoint. So with that being said, let's talk about the 5 components of credit. And what I'm going to do over the next several broadcasts is I'm going to keep bringing you all back to this, because this is the baseline for all credit. So let's start to talk about that. So it's 5 key components to everyone's credit, regardless of what the 3 bureaus that you want to look at. So we can start with those as well. So you have 3 major credit bureaus. And again, credit bureaus are really just places that are repositories that keep track of, not only how are you paying your bills, how much debt that you have, how you're servicing your debt, what's your capacity to service your debt. It also has information about where you live, how long you've been there, So a credit report is housed through three major credit bureaus. And the three major credit bureaus, the one that everyone knows about, I've heard about, is Equifax. Equifax to me is like the big boy. That is what a lot of companies use. And with Equifax has a lot of influence. A lot of companies use them for pulling credit for employees. A lot of businesses use it to look at different companies. And Equifax is a very, very powerful entity within the credit industry. So Equifax, I always put Equifax number one. And these are just in no order, but this is just my opinion. Second, you have TransUnion. TransUnion is a different credit bureau, and they pretty much function the same way as Equifax. It's just a different bureau that's housing the same information a lot of times, but sometimes different information. Because what you'll find is the reason you need to know the three credit bureaus is this. You may have something on Equifax that's not on TransUnion, and that can work to your advantage. But you have to know the rules of engagement, because you go poking around, you go poking around on Experian and something's not on there. The next thing you know, you done made a misstep and now it is on there. So you got to know what you're doing, because your credit is very important, but you have to know the rules of engagement and how you want to manage them. So first one, Equifax. The second system or credit bureau is TransUnion. And the third one is Experian. So those are the big three, but now you have all kinds of credit products online. So you have Credit Karma and you have Credit 101 and all these other things that you can, get to. You have annualcreditreport.com. So again, credit is so vast. We're gonna talk about the basics, and then I'm gonna talk to you about some of the components. So when you look at the three credit bureaus, that's something right off the bat. You should know that as an individual, the three credit bureaus, that's like the basics. That's like pre-K for credit, because the reason that's important is you need to know who you need to address when you start to wage war, similar to what we just talked about in the scripture that I read to you earlier. You need to know who you're going to be waging war against, because this is your livelihood that we're talking about. We're talking about the car you drive, the place you live in, the job that you have, the opportunities to leverage, meaning you go in and get a bank loan or things of that nature. So you need to know who you are going to be engaged and who you're going to be waging war against. So it's very important for you to know the big three. The big three: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. So once you understand the credit bureaus, let's talk a little bit about what they do. The credit bureaus are nothing more than a repository of information. And what they do is they keep track. So if you have company X, say you go out and you buy a car, you have your car loan with, Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo finance your car. You got your new car. You enjoying it. Wells Fargo starts to send you bills for the financing. You're sending Wells Fargo. You're repaying Wells Fargo for the check that they gave to the dealership. So you go out, you buy the car. The car's $20,000. You don't pay the $20,000 up front. You pay a down payment. Once you pay the down payment, the balance which owed on the car might be $19,000, because they let you put down $1,000 to get your new vehicle. So when you put your $1,000 down, now you got $19,000. You have to finance it. That's what financing is. So that financing comes from Wells Fargo. It could come from the credit union. It could come from any number of financial institutions. So what happens at that point is that balance is sent to the dealership, $19,000, and then here's where the interest, and we'll get into that in another show. The interest is added on to the principal, and that's the balance of what you owe on the vehicle. But now you're paying car payments to Wells Fargo. So every month you're paying these payments to Wells Fargo. Spring, summer, winter, fall. Spring, summer, winter, fall. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and you just keep doing that. It could be 36 months. It could be 48 months. It could be 60 months. It could be 72 months. And now they've gone as far as 84 months to buy a car. So I'll leave that down. I'll let you all resonate on that. 84 months to finance a car, not a house, not something That's for another show. But anyway, so now you're making these payments. But then something comes up, or you have a miscue, or things get tight and you miss a payment. As you're making these payments each month, your credit report is showing where you made those payments. They're keeping a record of those payments that you're making. So you're making those payments on time every month, hitting the due date. That is strengthening your credit. That is in your favor. But then that 1 month, because you could be paying on time for 12 straight months. Everything is going good, and then 1 month you do a little juggling, you pay a little this, you forget about it, or whatever comes up, and you don't pay that bill, and it goes 30 days past the due date. It's very important to understand credit, because it's not about the due date only, because the due date could be the 15th. So if you pay on the 16th, that's not going to hit your credit. When it hits your credit is when you go, and this is, again, these are credit basics. It's going to hit your credit when you go 31 days past the due date. So I won't go into the advanced. We got another session. We'll go into the advanced part of that. But just for today's discussion, just know that when you hit 31 days past your due date, you're going to get a late payment on your credit. That late payment has a tremendous amount of effect or a tremendous impact on your credit score, because right at that point when you have that late payment, even if you've been paying on time for 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row, 4 years in a row, the day that late payment hits your credit, you're going to lose a certain number of points from your credit score. And if you let it go to 60 days, you're going to lose even more points. And it takes time to regain those points, because when you have a late payment, that is a valid reflection of how you're paying. And why is that important? That's important because it goes to something that I was talking to my daughter about last night. A lot of times in life, people talk about a certain person has street cred. That's like a slang term. Oh, he has street cred. He has street credibility. But what that means, it has nothing to do, it's really not about who this person is in the street. It has a lot to do with, in that arena, when you have street cred, what that means is you've been doing something, because in the street, you don't have a credit bureau. What you have is your word and your honor. So as you're doing things, even when you're doing illegal activity, you might be selling drugs, stealing cars, whatever you do in the street, you build credibility by what? Keeping your word and doing what you said you're going to do. That is your street cred. So if you say, hey, if you give me X, I'm going to give you Y, that's your street cred. Or if you say, hey, I can steal any car that you need, you're going to pay me X number, that's your street cred. So just giving you a little something to think about. But when you come back into the legal side of the world, where most of us, reside and we do things, your credit, when you start making late payments, what that says to other people is that you're not credible. You're not credible because you're not paying Wells Fargo on time. And now you're coming to me and you say you want to, now you want a credit card because you had your car and now you're making late payments on your car. But then you go to the bank and say, hey, I want a credit card because I want to do, some traveling. I want to do what have you. The credit, when they pull your credit report and they look at all of your credit accounts and they see where you're paying late, they're not going to extend credit to you when you're paying late. It's the same way, again, that you wouldn't, say if you had a family member, you let them borrow $50, they said they were going to pay you back. You saw them at the family reunion, you saw them at Christmas, they coming by the house, they made no mention about the $50, but now they say, hey, you know what? Let me borrow another $50. More than likely, you're not going to lend them any more money because you're going to say, you didn't pay me back from the first time. So that's your credit. That's when your credit comes into play. So the credit bureaus, what they do is just a area where they keep track of all of these payments. But the thing to keep in mind is this. They're doing this for millions and millions of people with billions and billions of accounts. So what does that mean? They make errors. The credit bureaus make errors. They make errors on things like names, social security numbers, addresses, accounts that have been paid off, accounts that haven't been paid off, collections, bankruptcies, judgments, because these are humans that are inputting data, and as humans, we make errors. So it's going to be very important for you to start off with the basics, know the 3 bureaus, and then when you start talking about credit, and I've mentioned this several times, so I'm going to get to it because I know a lot of people say, well, wait, I thought you said it was 5 components. There are 5 main components of a credit score. Some people say 4 components. I usually put it into 5 because it is 5 different things. So in all these, when you add up the percentages, they add up to 100%. So the first thing is, and we just talked about that, the first part of your credit report is what they look at that factors into your credit score is your payment history. What is your payment history? Why is your payment history important? Because your payment history is, listen to this now, your payment history is 35% of your overall credit score. 35% of your overall credit score. So what does that mean? That means that when you go out and you have a late payment, 35% of your credit score is impacted by your payment history. And that can either work for you or against you. Now, if you're making payments on time, it's going to help you. And there's ways that you can do that that would enhance your credit score. There's things that you can do, and we'll talk about some of those strategies on another show, but because tonight we're going to do the basics, I won't talk about those strategies tonight, but just know that there are ways that you can enhance that. Your payment history is 35% of your overall credit score. The next component is credit. It's called credit utilization. Credit utilization. And what credit utilization is of the things that you have, you may have a mortgage, you may have revolving credit, you may have installment loans. It looks at the way that you're utilizing your credit. And what I mean by that is this. If you have credit cards and they're charged to the max, if you have a loan and it's charged to the max, meaning you took the loan out for $3,000, when you first take that loan out, you hit your credit report as a negative in a sense, because you got approved for the loan, but when you add the loan, it's going to show in your credit bureau as you borrowed $3,000, your balance is $3,000. The system is going to read it as you're at your max. So as you start to pay that loan down and get it down, and there's different rules of thumb as far as credit utilization. A lot of people say that to really keep it from affecting your score, you definitely need to be below 50% of your balance, meaning if it's a loan, if it's a credit card, if it's your mortgage, you need to get that to at least 50% of the overall balance in order for it to not have an impact on your overall credit score. So that goes for credit cards, installment loans, car loans, bank loans, signature loans, anything that you have that's going to be reported in payments on your credit report. Credit utilization is 30%. So let's stop right there before we even get into the other components. Payment history is 35% and credit utilization is 30%. So that's 65% of your overall credit score right there. Just payment history and credit utilization. So now when you look at your credit score, just doing those two things, just paying on time and managing the credit that you have will help you to increase your score, either maintain or increase your score in the long run. And these are things what I call, you have to get in the habit of paying on time. Or if you may not have the willpower or the discipline to pay on time, another thing that you can do and get into is start setting all your bills up where you pay on time automatically. So the way technology is set up now, you can make payments automatically through your bank every time that you get paid. And we talked about that when we was talking about setting up our calendars and setting up our bills so that way they're orderly. So making sure that you pay on time and your payment history, that's 35%. Credit utilization, that's 30% of your credit score. So now let's look at the length of history. Length of history is another component. And length of history, what that means is the amount of time that you've had an account. The amount of time that you've had an account, that way what you want to do is, if you're looking at the length of history, when you go out and you establish a new credit account, not only does that bring your score down because now you have a new credit account, but they also look at how long have you had the account? So if you open up an account, say at a jewelry store today, and you've only had that account for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, they really don't know how you're going to pay your bills. But if you have a mortgage that you've been paying on for 10 years, if you have a car note that you've been paying on consistently over the last 4 years, what that's going to do is it's going to put you in a better position for someone to extend you additional credit, because now they can see that you're trustworthy and you're going to do and pay and honor the contract that you say you're going to honor, and you haven't really had any problems with making the payments on a month-to-month basis. So length of history, that's the third component, and that's worth 15%. So when you take payment history at 35%, credit utilization at 30%, that's 65%. Now you're at length of history, that's 15%, that's 80%. Before we even get into the other components, that's 80% of your credit and your credit score. So that's an aha moment for a lot of people, because just managing those three components, even if I didn't give you the other two, if you learn to manage those three, payment history, credit utilization, length of history, and if you establish yourself with a nice track record of that, just those three, that's 80% of your credit score. So if you want to improve your credit, or if you say, hey, I'm ready to get started, hey, what do I need to do? These are the things that you need to do. And if you're in a situation where you've had some late payments, what you're going to have to do is make some additional payments, but you're going to have to make them on time for a period of time in order for you to get to the point where those late payments are no longer affecting you as much, and they're not really pulling your credit report or your credit score down. They're not dragging you down, because when you have those late payments, especially, we haven't even talked about this, if you have more than one account, and this is something else that can happen. I'm giving you all some insider information, because this came to me from years of trial and error and making mistakes and things of that nature. You can have an account, say your car note. You could be making your car note payments all the time, and say you got a credit card bill, student loan, other things. You have other accounts. Do you realize that as you start to make payments on your car note, say if you run into some trouble and all of a sudden you can't make your car note is late. The first month, okay, your car note was late the first month. That second month, when your car note is late, do you realize that some of your other creditors are pulling your report and looking at your credit report? Do you realize they can either pull your credit back, like limit, they can put a freeze on your credit card and say, hey, you can't use this card anymore until you start making your payments on time. And you might say, well, hey, Bank of America, I'm dealing with Wells Fargo. What does that have to do with you? What they're trying to do is prevent themselves from being in a similar situation. So what they'll do is they won't turn the card off, meaning that you can't have the card. You can have the card, but what they will do is they won't allow you to make any additional purchases, because they looked at the fact that you're making your car note late. So they're looking at theirs and saying, well, hey, I don't want to be in the same position. So you can't they'll suspend your ability to make additional payments until you start making on-time payments on your car note. And that could be for any number of accounts that you have. So again, these three components are 80% of your credit score: payment history, credit utilization, and length of history. Now, why is it important to know the components that go into credit? It's important to know the components that go into a credit score, because you need to know how you're going to wage war with people in these different financial institutions when you go out and you're ready to buy a car or get a student loan or get a car note. Whatever you want to do, you're going to need to know who you're going to be dealing with. So, and you're going to need to know how you could come back from those missteps that you're going to have in life, because again, credit is going to be something that's going to follow you your whole life. So you're going to have rough patches. You're going to have times in your life where things are not going your way. You may have a bankruptcy. You may have a failed business. You may have, you got fired from a job and you don't have your income. So as those things come up, the thing that I want you to do, and part of my primary objective for having this show is I want to empower you so that way you know how to come back from when you have those issues. Because it's one thing to know when you're doing good, money's flowing good, no problem. Your credit score is great. You got a 700 plus. Everything is going well. That's not the hard part. The hard part is you got fired. You got laid off. You got a medical bill. You got sick. And now you have all these medical bills piling up. And now the medical bills, because you couldn't pay them on time, they rolled into a collection. And now the collection is preventing you from getting a new car. So now you buying a car from a buy here, pay here lot. The thing that I'm trying to do is empower you so that way you understand the rules of engagement when it comes to credit. So that way, if you understand the rules of engagement, and we're going to talk about credit law in a future or an upcoming show, but once you start learning how to engage and how important it is for you to understand these different components of credit, then you can come back from anything. And I'm telling you from personal experience, you can come back from a bankruptcy. You can come back from a repossession, because I shared this on the show before, and it's not something that I'm particularly, like I like the fact that it happened, but I did have a repossession. I had a repossession. I was coming from church. So if you could imagine, you thinking you're doing everything right. I was coming from Bible study, and I came home from Bible study, and then gave my money, gave my offering, thought I was doing everything. Come in the driveway, repo man got me. So, oh my goodness. So even when you're doing right, you could have these challenges. But the thing about it was this: I've learned so much about how to effectively manage credit that when I have those missteps, and if I do have those missteps again in the future, I have the resolve and I have 100% confidence that it's only going to take me a little bit of time to get back on my feet, because I know exactly what I need to do, that I know I can make that credit score move less than 30 days. Because I know how to do it, what to say, what not to say. And what I'm doing in my ministry is I'm sharing this with the greater audience. I'm sharing this with young people. I'm sharing this with people that are my age and older to say, hey, nobody never taught me that. So now it's my job, and part of my calling is to make sure that I teach people about credit. So now we're going to move into the next two components of a credit score. The next one is new credit. I touched on that shortly. Anytime that you have credit and then you go out and then you establish a new account. You had a car, but now you go out and you buy a new car. That's going to impact your credit score, because they call that new credit. So anytime that you establish a new account, it's going to impact your credit score. It's not going to impact it that long, maybe 3 months, maybe 4 months at the max if you get the new loan and you start to manage it. But anytime that you establish new accounts, your credit score will be impacted. So you need to know that, so that way you don't think you could just open an account. It's going to pull you, it's going to continue. It doesn't pull your score down significantly, but you might lose 15 points, another 15. And before you know it, you done lost 45 points because you adding all of this new credit and you adding all these new accounts. So as you add, you need to plan. And that's one of the things that we've talked about on this show, is that as you're doing things, you need to first decide, and then you need to develop a plan. And then third, you need to look at your savings. Fourth, you need to make sure that you have some type of component in place that you can protect it. And then the fifth one is you want to get into a position where you can give. So as you're opening these new credit accounts, you want to make sure that you understand that it's going to impact your credit. So don't just open them because you can, because what happens a lot of times, we've been turned down so much. It's like anything else in life. You get turned down enough. I don't care if it's dating. I don't care if you're trying to get a new loan. If somebody's constantly telling you no, and once you start hearing yes, sometimes we don't have the discipline to manage the yes. To manage like, oh, not only can I get this car, I can get a bigger car. I can get a more expensive car. Not only can I get this house, I can get a more expensive house. And before you know it, you're in what I call the deep end. Because once you start to get into the deep end and you don't know how to effectively manage your resources, that's when you start to get into trouble, and that's when your credit starts to really be impacted. So the fourth component is new credit. And then the last component, and the new credit is 10% of your overall credit score. So new credit is going to be 10%. And then the last component is going to be credit mix. So a credit mix, what that means is this: your credit report is going to be made up of different types of items and different types of accounts. So you may ask, what does that mean? What I thought it was just credit. No, because you're going to have different types of accounts. You're going to have a mortgage. You're going to have what's known as revolving credit, and you're going to have installment credit. You're going to have collections, and you're going to have other types of accounts on your credit, which makes up your credit mix. And why is credit mix important? Credit mix is important because you can't have all revolving credit. Because if you have all revolving credit, meaning you just have credit cards and things, open lines of credit, that means that you're paying things, you charging them up, then you're paying them down. You're charging them up, you're paying them down. That's revolving credit. That's revolving credit. Most times that's either open lines of credit or credit cards, things where you have access to charge at any given time and raise that balance up. So as it raises the balance up, you get close to your max. Now you're getting into your credit utilization. Your score is going down. So those are credit mixes. So a nice credit mix would be you got a mortgage, you got a nice little mortgage, or you say, well, I don't have a mortgage, I'm renting. That's fine. But you're going to need to have installment loans mixed with revolving credit, and then you're going to need to have some closed-end accounts. Not that you need to have these things, because I'm not encouraging you to go into debt, but as you manage your life and manage the things as you go through life, you're going to have these different things, and they're going to come in the form of revolving credit, installment credit, or you're going to have a mortgage, or you're going to have things like auto loans and things like that. So if you have those, you manage your business, or you manage your personal life, just know that all of those things are going to play a part in your overall credit score. That's going to be 10%. So let's do a recap. Payment history. Payment history is 35% of your overall credit score. Credit utilization. Credit utilization is going to be 30% of your overall credit score. So just looking at those two things alone, that's going to have a huge impact on your credit score. The next thing that you're going to look at is your length of credit. A lot of young people have problems. They don't have bad credit. They just don't have any credit. So in order for you to get established, you need to create an account so that way you can start to impact your length of credit. And as you impact your length of history and start making payments on time over a period of time, you're going to open yourself up to not only increasing your credit score, but showing people that you can be trusted with different types of credit. So you're going to have to get your length of history increased in order for it to have an impact on your credit score. Fourth thing that you're going to look at is new credit. That's when you're going out and get new credit cards, new car loans. You may be getting a mortgage, you may get a new student loan. All of those are going to really go into that new credit bucket. And the last thing you want to look at is your credit mix. So those are the 5 major components. A couple other things that I want to add in here that also impact your credit score that I know over time, a lot of times people don't realize it, but one of the things is credit inquiries. And what's a credit inquiry? A credit inquiry is every time that you fill out an application. You may be filling out a cell phone application, a credit card application. You're trying to get a new loan at the credit union. Anytime that you fill out an application to have consideration for an extension of credit, regardless of what you're applying for, it's called a credit inquiry. Why is a credit inquiry important? Credit inquiries typically will stay on your credit report for no less than 2 years. They'll usually stay on longer than 2 years because when that 2 year comes, the majority of people don't know how to actively manage their credit report. So those inquiries will stay on your credit report. They're not going to just drop off. The same rule of thumb when you have credit accounts that are greater than 7 years old, by law, they should drop off because that is what we would call the term that they can be reported is 7 years. But what happens many times is people not actively managing their credit report. So it will stay on your report longer unless you get into the habit of actively managing your credit. So with credit inquiries, that also sends an indication to the creditors when you're applying for different lines of credit. And the way that works is this. Say you go out today, you apply for a car loan, you apply for a student loan because you're going back to grad school, you apply for a credit card, and then you go back in and you apply for a bank loan. So those are like 4 or 5 different credit inquiries. And what the bank is going to say is like, wait a minute, this person looks a little too unstable to extend credit to them because they seem a little bit almost like desperate to try to get something done in a short period of time. So what you do then is you have all of these credit inquiries. You have 4 or 5 now this month. Then you turn around 2 months from now. You do another 2 or 3. What you want, the rule of thumb is you want to have less. You want to have less than 12 every year. It's really better to have less than 4, because less than 4 is only like 1 every 3 months, and you can manage that. So that way, in a 2-year time period, you've only had about 7 to 8 credit inquiries. It shows a certain level of stability. 12, I've seen 12 because they have, with credit inquiries, you also have what they call hard and soft inquiries. So a soft one might be you already have an account, you might have an American Express card, or you have a Capital One card. They're going to pull your credit intermittently because they want to see how your credit score, how you're paying all your bills with all your other creditors as well. Many times that won't impact your score. That's what's called a soft credit pull. But whenever you're trying to establish new credit, that's what's considered a hard credit pull or a hard inquiry. And those are the ones that can impact your credit score over time. Again, I know this is a lot of information. So what I'm going to really compel you to do, hopefully you're taking all of this information seriously. You're going to have to start going out and doing some research on your own. So that way, when you look at your credit and you start taking all of these different factors into play, then what you want to know is like, what can I do to impact my score if it's not where I want it to be? And what are the things that I can do to make my credit stronger over a period of time? And also you want to understand all the different players that are involved in your credit score. One of the biggest opportunities that I see with people in their credit is that you really have to become an active participant in working and managing your credit. And what I mean by active is many people don't take the time to pull their own credit report. Most times people go into different situations and they go in to buy a car. They see a new car and say, hey, I want to get the new Malibu. They go into the dealership. The salesman is asking them, where do you want your monthly payment to be? And you say, I want to be at $250. So the salesman knows that he can get you into a car with a $250 car note, because the question is not about where do you want your credit, where do you want your payment to be? The question really should be is, how much car can you afford? Because I can get you into a car at $250, but if you haven't done a budget and you don't know how that $250 is going to impact your overall household budget, you could already be overextended and be adding additional debt to something that you can't service. So again, that's another topic for a different show, but just think about that. So as you're managing through your credit, you need to become an active participant in pulling your credit. Don't walk into any place, Rooms to Go, a car dealership, even when you go in to get a loan. You should know your credit score. You should know what things are on your credit. You should know where you are in the process of getting your credit report improved, or if you're challenging something, or if you're trying to get something removed. You also need to know if there's errors on your report, because it may be someone with a similar name to yours that have medical bills on your report, and the first time that you find out about it shouldn't be when you go in to purchase something or you going to make an application, because many times they're not going to give you a copy of your credit report when you go in. They're going to just tell you if you were approved or denied. And if you're denied by law, they have to send you a letter indicating why you were denied based on your credit score or your credit report. And many times it'll spell it out. It'll say derogatory payment history, or length of, accounts too short or too small. So it will tell you what you need. It will literally give you the keys to the kingdom, and it'll tell you what you need to work on. It's kind of like having somebody say, hey, you need to add salt to it. It's just that simple. But you have to become an active participant in managing your credit, because if not, then you go into what I call a dependent position, and a passive position where someone else is going to manage your credit for you. They're going to put you in the loan that they want you to be into. They're going to put you in the car that they want you to be in. But when you become an active participant, you know how much you can afford. You know what your car notes can be. You know what you need to work on. And you know your weak spots. And what I mean by weak spots, you know whether or not you can manage $2,000. So now if they extend you a line of credit for $10,000, can you manage that? Do you have the discipline or the wherewithal to say, hey, will I go out and spend the $10,000 and do I have the means to pay it back, or will I get into trouble? So being an active participant in pulling your credit, and by law, you can get 2 credit reports every year free of charge. So you can go to annualcreditreport.com, you can go to Credit Karma, you can write a letter to go to Equifax.com. You have to, by law, you can have 2 credit reports, free credit reports every year. And why is that important? It's important because it's free to you, but you need to be pulling it and reading through and learn how to read a credit report. Now, I know we're getting short on time today, but one of the things that I'm going to really, again, compel you to start to do is learn how to read a credit report. Many people don't know how to read a credit report, what the different codes mean, what the different components of a credit report is. They don't know how to read the credit report. They just want to know, am I approved or not approved? That's all they want to know. Am I approved? And when you say, no, you're not approved, then they just say, okay, well, I guess I can't get it then. But you need to get in the habit of learning how to, it's just like reading a book. You wouldn't say that to your child. I mean, everybody's really, into education and making sure our kids are in the good schools and things of that nature. This is when you need to get good at reading credit. And then if you get good at reading credit, then you become in control of your life. So when you walk into that dealership and they tell you, hey, you can only do X, then you say no. Because it's a commercial with the young lady, she got her feet up on the table, and the guy's telling her, well, the best we can do is this. She says no, because I know I have a 750 credit score. She's like, not only do I want the car, I want that plant sitting over there in that corner and this couch. And what they're going to do is this. They're going to give you the plant, the couch, and the car that you want. And you can get whatever you want if you start to become an active participant in managing your credit. So we're right at the top of the hour. I know we ran over a little bit, but what we want to do is we want to continue to give you this information. And I'm going to give you the phone call again with a phone number that you can call in with a question or any comment that you want to have. The phone number is 678-381-1973. If you like what we're doing here at the Daily Bread Radio Show, or if you want to reach out to us on Twitter, you can reach out to me at Joaquin Thompson Sr. at Daily Bread Radio. You can also reach me on email. You can email me at dailybreadradioshow@yahoo. So if you have a question or a comment, please call into the show, email me, send me something on Twitter. Might take me a minute to get back to you on Twitter because I'm still trying to figure out all these different ways to respond, because I responded to some people. I went back to look to see when they responded, but I couldn't find it. So I am working my way through that, and it's a good thing because it just shows as you're learning. Don't be afraid to learn. Don't shy away from learning. Do everything that you can to really empower yourself to be a very good lifelong learner. So if you have a question, a comment, again, the call-in number is 678-381-1973. We're talking about credit this evening. We're talking about the components of credit. And we're talking about some things that you can use and some different strategies that you can use to help to build your credit. And like I said, this is going to take multiple shows because credit is the cornerstone for just about everything that we do. So I'm not going to rush through this. I'm not going to try to, get it all in by a certain period of time. I want you all to take the time to let's build, because we started off doing our budget. And first, before we did our budget, we had to get our bills in order. And when we got our bills in order, we came on with our, we know everything that we have obligations to. We put a system in place for us to put it on our calendar so we know when everything is due. And now when you go to this next level, when you start to be an active participant in your credit, those other 2 prerequisites are the things that we did as far as getting your bills in order and getting it onto the bill payment system calendar. This is going to pay dividends for you because now you understand why it's important for you to know your due dates, Why it's important for you to be organized, because it's nothing worse than for you to have the money to pay a bill and then to miss a bill payment, and then you end up 30 days later missing it or forgetting to pay it, and then you have a late payment and your credit becomes compromised because you were disorganized. So the thing that I'm going to encourage you to do is take what we're talking about on the Daily Bread radio show, take it very serious, take it, treat it like it's life or death. Treat it like you're looking at it and saying, what do I need to do? How do I need to do it in order for me to, turn things around? And one of the biggest things I was thinking about earlier today is think about this, and think about the scripture that we talked about earlier when we talked about for how this is going to impact your family. I feel that every family needs to have one person, at least one person in their family that understands how credit works. And why is that important? Because in families, you have fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, children, cousins. Now, if you have someone in your family that the majority of the family doesn't understand how credit really works, the majority of the family is not pulling their credit, the majority of the family is not aware of the bill payment system, the majority of the family is being disorganized year in and year out, what does that do to the family? If the parent doesn't know, then the parent is limited to what he can teach the child. So the same way that we teach our children manners, we teach them how to read, we teach them about, ways and different things that are belief systems in our culture. Somebody has to be the responsible party in the house to say, no, this is how you do this. It's going to come into play because children are not going to always be children forever. They're going to become young adults. And when they become young adults, if they don't know any better, they're going to repeat the mistakes that their parents made unless the parent says, you know what? Here's a strategy that I use in order for me to improve my credit, and I'm going to show it to you so you can do it as well at an early age, and you don't have to wait till you become 50 and listen to the Daily Bread radio show to find out some of these strategies about how this can impact your credit, and not only your credit, but your well-being. So I feel almost lucky in the sense that I have a wealth of knowledge in this area, a wealth of knowledge about personal finance, financial literacy, credit, bill management, investing, interest, things of that nature, that now I have 3 adult children. So my 3 adult children, as they start to make different decisions about doing different things, I can't tell them or make them do what I want them to do. But what I can do is just share some information with them and let them take that information and say, does it make sense? Will this help me? Is it something that I could do to make my credit life or my financial well-being better? And they will know, and then they'll have almost like an advisor. So when I work, I put myself into like a consultant role or an advisory role with my adult children because I know and understand that these are things that are going to impact whether or not they can get an apartment, whether or not they can get a home, whether they can get a condo, car, loans, things of that nature. So what I always try to do is put them into a position where they can be successful. Because that way, not only am I putting them in a position to be successful, I can also put everybody that's coming behind me, I can share these nuggets or these tools with them so that way they understand how it can impact not only our immediate family, but our extended family when it comes to things like estates, death, things of that nature. I think we got a caller coming in. Caller, what's your name and where you calling from? This is the Daily Bread radio show.
Hello, Joaquin. My name is Tanya. I'm calling from Mapleton.
How you doing, Tanya?
Question.
Sure.
Well, thank you.
Go right ahead.
What is the difference between what's the difference between credit utilization
Okay.
and credit management?
And credit mix?
The mix. Yes.
Okay. What's the difference between credit utilization and credit mix? So I'm going to give you...
How do they differ?
How they differ. Okay. So let's talk about credit utilization first, and we'll use a couple of examples. And that's a very good question, Tanya. So when you think about credit utilization, this is the way the credit bureaus look at it. So I'll say, let's look at a credit card. card and your credit card, the max that you're on that credit is $1,000. So that's your max. Your max on that credit card is $1,000. So utilization means that as you're using card month to month and you're accumulating interest, you go from 50 to 100 to 150. So you're still pretty good because you only utilize about 15% of the available cards. So you're 15%, 20%. When you get 30, a little bit of 30%. Let's start to take a look at this. When you exceed 30%, that's when you start getting into the realm of it impacting your credit score. So now you go to 40%, your score is going to come down a little bit. Go to 50%, your score is coming down a little bit. You get to 75%, your score is coming down a little bit more. And when you get it to the max, you get to $1,000, now your score is down specifically, and this is when I was saying you have to become an active learner. It's specifically down because you have maxed out and used up all of everything that you could utilize on that card has maxed out. So when you look at it, that's just one credit card. But if you have multiple credit cards, say you have 3 credit cards, the same rule of thumb, you definitely want to be below 50% utilization at all times. It's ideal to be below 30%. Why is that important? That's important because if you have, say you have 4 or 5 credit cards, if you have 4 or 5 credit cards and they're all maxed out, you're going to lose a significant number of credit scoring points. Why is that important? That's important because now you may be in a position where you like, I'm ready to do X, or I need to buy Y, or I need to get a new car. But if everything is maxed out and now you want to apply for a credit or a loan for a car, that's not an ideal time to apply for a car. And if you're not being an active manager of your credit, you won't even realize that because everything is maxed out, it's not a very opportune time for you to apply for a car. So that's credit utilization. Credit utilization is how you're using your available credit in different forms. It can be credit cards, it can be lines of credit, it can be loans, but it looks at your credit score, takes into account how you're utilizing your available credit. Now, when you start talking about credit mix has to do with the types of credit that you have. Revolving credit cards are what we would call revolving credit. Revolving credit is this. Using that same scenario, you got 4 or 5 cards that maxed out. You can start to pay those cards down. So as you start to pay them down and they start going back down in the other direction, now you've only utilized, you paid $250 on that $1,000 card. Now you're at $750. You're only at 75% utilization. Now you're going to start to gain credit points. So now your score is going to start to go back up. You pay your card down to $500. Now you're at 50% utilization. Your score is going up. Same thing, when you get it down to 0 or you get it less than 30, then those points that you lost, you're going to regain those points. And each card that you do that with, you're going to regain that scoring that you lost initially. But the credit mix is looking at whether or not you have revolving credit, an installment loan. An installment loan is what we would call a closed-end loan. An installment loan is where you go, you get a loan, the loan is say $1,000, and they say, okay, when we disperse this loan, we're going to give you $1,000, and when we give you this $1,000, your payment is going to be $80 a month for 24 months plus interest. That's an installment loan. You're going to pay that set amount every month, $80 plus interest, because you know they got to add interest in. $80 plus interest, 80, 80. That's an installment loan. You're going to be paying that.
So,
Cardinal, go right ahead.
So question. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Not question. So utilization management is
credit
when
utilization.
Utilization is when you make sure you stay under the percentage.
Correct.
Right?
Of your available credit. Your usage of your available credit. Your usage.
So make sure you stay under the 30%,
stay under 30.
35%.
Yes, stay
under that.
Right.
And credit mix is the types of credit that you have that they're looking at.
Correct.
So the next question would be, what is the better credit? Would it be the mortgage, the car versus revolving credit, or get a loan with that? I mean, what are the 1, 2, 3s and the best credit?
Well, a couple things like
if you're gonna.
Yeah, that's another great question. Now, one of the things that has come up in the credit reporting industry is that they really want to look for mortgages. So even if you don't have a mortgage, say you might be renting an apartment, your credit it's not going to necessarily be derogatory because you don't have a mortgage, but they are looking for a mortgage type loan in order to be in your overall credit mix. So you may have a strong credit already, but then you go out and buy a house. When you go out and buy the house, you're going to lose some points because now you have a new loan, you got length of history. But over time, what's going to happen is it's going to look at your credit mix, because what creditors look at is if you only have, say you have revolving credit, which is credit cards, unsecured cards, things of that nature, and you have a couple of installment loans. What I'm trying to do now is make a decision. I don't know how you would handle or how you're going to manage a mortgage over a period of time. So not only is it going to come into play in your credit mix, because the FICO system, to me, is kind of like, it's the matrix, really. So I'm just giving you my personal opinion, because with credit scoring, there's strategies to improve your score, things that we do know about, but there's always that, what I call that nebulous area where it seems like you're doing everything right, and for whatever reason, it just don't move, or it's just not there. It's almost like a secrecy or something behind the scenes. So I would say a very optimal credit mix would be when you get to the point where you have a mortgage, you have installment credit, you have revolving credit, because keep in mind what this is showing to other people in the future is you can manage these different types of accounts. And that's what you wanted to see, because as you're going and you're growing in your credit life, you want them to be able to say, well, I see she can manage revolving credit because she's paid it. She's running up to 1,000. Now she's paid it off. She can manage that. I've seen that over a period of time, and she's making her payments on time. I can see that she can manage installment credit because she's made these payments. She made them on time, hasn't missed anything. Okay, so you're going to get points for that as well. And then it comes into different types of loans, mortgages versus some other type of instruments that revolve or involve your credit. Car loans. Car loans are different. The way you manage a car loan is different than you manage a student loan. So they take all of that into account. So when you say what would be optimal, I would say for me, in my personal opinion, optimal would be if you have the management, if you can show that you can effectively manage revolving credit, manage installment credit, and also manage something like a mortgage or auto loan, things of that nature, it's just going to make you a stronger candidate in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Great questions. Great questions. And those are the type of things that you want to keep in mind, because, again, if you're being active, length of credit for a lot of young people, that's something that they start off with. And then there's different strategies that you can use to get back to where you want to go a lot faster than paying a passive roll. Because a passive roll is, I lost points, I paid it back off. But say if you've paid your credit card off and now you're waiting on the creditor to report back to Equifax that you paid it off. That could be 2 or 3 months from now. They report every month, but some months they may be a little slower than others, and you want to get it updated right away. So some ways that you can do that. It's not illegal. It's totally legal, but you have to start to learn the laws. And one of the things that you can go out and do it's a pretty large document, but I would encourage everyone to pull a copy of it and start to look at it. It's called the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Some people call it the FCRA, Fair Credit Reporting Act. And what's the Fair Credit Reporting Act? The Fair Credit Reporting Act is a federal document that tells you about federal law that governs how credit is reported and what credit bureaus are allowed to do and not to do. So if you know your rights, it's almost like your civil rights. If you know what people can and can't do to your credit, it makes you a much stronger advocate for yourself and doing the things that you need to do in order to actively manage your credit. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act is a very good document. It's pretty large, but it's worth you printing it out and starting to read through it, because I can tell you, the more you know about what you can and can't do, and the more you know about what creditors, meaning people who put things on your credit, and the credit bureaus can and can't do, it's going to make you a much, much stronger advocate for yourself. Another great document that talks about federal laws is the Fair Debt Collections and Practice Act, the FDCPA, the Fair Debt Collections and Practice Act. Again, another very large document, but one of the things that is really important about that is it talks to you about collections and what collection agencies can and can't do. What's your rights under and these are laws. So let's keep this, let's be open and honest about this. These are laws that govern the way that credit is reported, and what's the federal guidelines on the Fair Debt Collections Practice Act. So you want to learn those, because as you learn those different things, many times people, and this is one of the first tweets that I did when I started learning how to tweet and do things out there. I said, it's funny how people like realtors, bankers, mortgage brokers give information about how to manage your credit when they really don't know. And they're doing it every day. Because I talk to people in banks, I talk to mortgage people, and I just do it as a test, because I'm just trying to see where they at. Say, oh yeah, well, what do I need to do X, Y, and Z? And they'll just, oh yeah, what you need to do is X, and I'm saying to myself, like, you shouldn't even be telling people that, because now you're telling people wrong information because you don't know, but they have a tremendous impact on the population at large. Because if you don't know and I start to tell you, or if you look to me as an authoritative figure because I'm working in a bank, then you think I know about credit, then you're going to take what I tell you as the gospel and you start doing it, and you could be doing it totally wrong. So I always I love when people are trying to tell other people how to manage credit or personal finance, and they have really no idea of what they're talking about. They're just giving their own personal opinion. So great information, great questions. If you have a question, you can definitely call in 678-381-1973. King, I see you join the broadcast. Antonio, we had you on a couple of weeks ago. I see you join the broadcast as well. We're going over till we're doing a little overtime. We're doing just like it's the playoffs in the NBA, and we the same way. We're going into a little overtime tonight, but it's a good thing because it's allowing us the time to touch on some things that's very important to all of our listeners, all of the people that are on Facebook Live, that are listening to me live on the radio as well. It's giving everybody the opportunity to ask some of those questions about credit and things that go into credit. And tonight, like I said, I just want to start on the basics. The 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, and then talk about the different components of a credit score. Things like payment history, credit utilization, length of history, new credit, and credit mix. And where does this fit at in the body of Christ or in churches? And this is something I always talk about, because as we're being educated and we're working on our spiritual walk, I hear it every week that I come into the studio with my colleagues on their shows. I hear it every Sunday when I go to church, and when I'm on social media and I'm talking to people about different things. People in the church are having challenges with personal finance. So let's be clear about that. And that's why I don't get caught up in numbers. Like, it might be 100 people on the broadcast, it might be 5. But if it's 5 people on the broadcast and I can help them out and teach them about something that not only is going to improve their lives, but improve the lives of their families, and it's going to give them peace of mind, that is my ministry. And I feel like I am the minister of finance. With some of my friends, they start joking with me, say, "Oh, you the minister of finance?" But I'm still reading. I still learn. I'm reading on this subject every day. I'm ordering books on it. I'm still listening to tapes. I still go to seminars. So I don't think that I'm a know-it-all. Like I have all of the answers to everything. And I'm giving you my personal opinion. So that way you don't have to take it and say, well, he told me. I always tell people from the first show that I did, go do your own research. Go read your own book. Go spend the time to invest in you So that way, as you do your investing into yourselves and go to seminars and read their books and, buy different audio tapes and things of that nature. I'm dating myself. I said audio tapes, but CDs. I'm still dating myself. Old, right? CDs old. I guess they're doing downloads now. But whatever you're investing in, you got to invest in yourself first. Invest in you first. Invest in you first. So that way, as you're making an investment in yourself, you always are going to have those dividends. Because, like we were talking about earlier, if you don't plow, then you're not going to get the harvest. Because when you start to sow those seeds, and if you're not, letting those seeds germinate, if you don't understand what you have to cover those seeds up with, if you don't understand that there's a time factor, in everything that we do, then you're not going to get the harvest. And personal finance is one of the biggest topics, not only in the church, but in general. It can tear a family apart. It can tear your job apart. It can tear friends apart, because one thing that people don't play with, two things people don't play with. Two things. I don't care where you go, and I don't care what culture you're in. People don't play with money. They don't play with children. They don't play about their children, and they do not play about money. So the thing that you can do is to make sure that you become an active advocate for yourself and invest in everything that you want to do. Oh, and they definitely don't play about their women. So my producer put that on there, but that's that. I didn't think I had to say it, but I guess it's for and women don't play about their men. So that's all good. So we're at the bottom of the hour now. Like I said, we like the NBA. It's the playoffs, and we put in a little extra time because this is what we do. I really feel privileged to be able to have this platform and talk about the things that we're doing. Something that I do want to share with you is I'm still working diligently on my investments for the show. So we are working on the website. We have a website coming up soon, specifically for the Daily Bread Show. We are partnering with a nonprofit organization. It's called the American Financial Literacy Association. And their primary objective is to go out and teach financial literacy to the masses. So we're partnering with them to bring on some additional opportunities and products. We are working out the guidelines and the outline, not only for the membership, because one of the things that we're going to do with the membership is I've already identified some key experts, that people that have the membership with the Daily Bread Radio Show, and the membership is different than the sponsorship. So let me break that down. So we talked about the sponsors because we do need investments into the show. So the sponsorship is $120 for the balance of the year. So we're just going into May. So you pay your $120 if you have a small business or you have something that you're doing. Then what that does is it gives me the opportunity to tell people about your business, your enterprise, whatever you're into. And I can do it every show, every Thursday, as many times as I like. But what I'm looking for is people to start to invest in the Daily Bread Radio Show. So if you have a spirit of investing in the show, you can definitely email me at the Daily Bread Radio Show at yahoo.com. You can send me a tweet, probably be more effective than send me an email, because if you send me something on Twitter, it's going to take me a minute to click through all these different things. I'm like, I don't know if you sending me something or Donald Trump or somebody else. So probably be easier for you to send me an email. But very serious about the sponsorships, because with the sponsorship, what that does is it gives me the opportunity, gets you listed on DKM Radio, the website, so that way if somebody's looking for a lawn care or whatever you're doing, even if you're in another state, we'll still have it posted, because the thing about the internet is worldwide. So it doesn't matter. We're going to take all those excuses off the table about I'm not in Atlanta, I'm in, Greensboro, North Carolina, or I'm in Florida. Wherever you at, you can, contact me, get a sponsorship. The membership for the show is going to be different. We're in the process of working with a group of counselors, and what we're trying to do is come up with something that has what I call a value add. So for the members of the Daily Bread Radio audience that says, hey, I want to be a member, part of the membership, we haven't put a dollar amount on it, but it will be a fee. But within that fee, you're going to receive certain discounts. You're going to have access to certain experts, in addition to what I give out on the show. But you're going to have those certain points in time in life when you're going to say, you know what, I really could use someone that's an expert in debt elimination. We're going to have that. Or I really could use an expert in the car buying experience, what to do, what not to do. We're going to have an expert for that. Financial planning, we're going to have an expert for that. Tax strategies, we're going to have an expert for that, because I don't want you to think that I'm the end all and know all. I'm not the Oracle or Jedi, Jabba the Hutt or none of that, Yoda. I'm just a person that's here to share some information with you so that way we can all grow in our walk, and continue to encourage you to, keep the word of God first. Keep that as your platform and your foundation. And then what I'm going to do, my part, is to expose you to some things that will be enriching to your life. So we're going to do those as well. We're going to have a membership. And lastly, what I'm going to close with this evening is, if you have something on your heart, because I know a couple people have reached out to me like, hey, they want to make just a standard donation to the show, or they don't want to do the sponsorship right now, but they do want to make a donation, definitely send me an email. You can email me at dailybreadradioshow@yahoo. Let me know what kind of seed that you want to sow. I'm open to that. And what I'm going to do is, with those first fruits that I get from the leadership or from the membership that are listening to the shows, I'm going to take those and repurpose those, and it's going to go right back out to my listening audience. So I'm not using it for some of the things that I want to do for the show, but we do have some people that are in need that are listening to the show. They've reached out to me in confidence, and I've given them my word that I'm going to do everything that I can do to sow a seed into their life to bless them the way that we're being blessed. So if you feel that you have a need, or you want to make a contribution, I guess you would call this the virtual collection. This is what this is. So we're not going to shy away from things that are important to us as a people. So this is the virtual collection. So if you feel like it's something on your heart and you want to make a donation, by all means do so. Just send me an email at the Daily Bread. Well, not but send me an email at dailybreadradioshow@yahoo.com. dailybreadradioshow@yahoo.com. Sow your best seed, and what I'm going to do again is I'm going to take whatever I receive and I'm going to put it right back out into the atmosphere, and we're going to bless some people. So I want to thank you all for going into overtime with me tonight. Next week we'll be back. We're going to continue talking about credit. If you have questions, if you have anything that you want me to reach out to you about, then definitely let me know. Send me contact me on Twitter. Send me something, via email. Or if you see me, if you have my cell phone, you can send me a text, whatever you want to do. But I want to make this show bigger and better. And I'm just getting started. So I got at least 5 to 10 good years in me. So we just get started. So you don't have to worry about, did he quit? Did he give up? Nobody was signing in. I'm not stopping. I'm just warming up. So kudos to all of you all out there. I love my listening audience. You all have a beautiful week. Be prosperous. And if there's anything that I can do for you, by all means, just reach out to me. And thank you. And I'll see you all next week.
Good job, man. I'll tell you, I said, but want me to hit it?
Yeah, go ahead, man.